I always thought love was enough, that somehow, if I gave enough of myself, I could make him see me. But Jason, he didn't care. Not really. I remember how he stood there, in that dimly lit coffee shop, his eyes cold as he spoke the words I'd never imagined I'd hear. "It's over, Mia." The air around us felt thick, suffocating. "What, Jason? What do you mean?" My heart was pounding, but I refused to let him see how badly I was shaking. He crossed his arms and looked away. I can't do this anymore. You're holding me back. I need someone who can keep up with me, not someone stuck in a dead-end job. I swallowed the lump in my throat. The words hurt more than I expected. "So, that's it. You just throw us away because I'm not where you think I should be." He shrugged, his gaze never meeting mine. "I didn't want to do this, but you'll figure it out. You always do." I wanted to scream, to throw my coffee at him, but I stayed quiet. The silence stretched, thick and heavy. I couldn't believe it. The man I thought I would spend my life with was walking away without even a second glance. It felt like the ground beneath me had cracked open. "I'm sorry, Mia." He stood up to leave, like it was that simple. "Jason, please." I didn't know what else to say. My world was unraveling, and I couldn't hold it together anymore. But he was already out the door, his figure disappearing into the cold street outside. Just like that, gone. I sat there frozen in place, as the tears burned behind my eyes. I had no idea what was left for me now. I was always the one who gave too much. Always the one who was left behind. For hours, I stayed in that same seat, staring at the empty cup of coffee, wondering how someone I thought I knew could just throw it all away. But something in me stirred. I wasn't going to let this be the end. Not for me. I couldn't stay here in this small town, stuck, waiting for him to come back like I always did. I wouldn't. I stood up, took my coat, and walked out of that coffee shop. It was the first step, the hardest one, but it would lead me somewhere new, somewhere better. He had no idea what I was capable of, and one day, I'd show him. It wasn't easy at first. Those first few weeks after Jason left, I didn't know what to do with myself. It felt like I was drowning in the weight of my own failure, like I was suffocating under all the uncertainty. But time has a way of pushing you forward, even when you're too broken to take a step. I remember the first time I woke up and decided, enough. I wasn't going to let this be my life. So, I picked myself up, wiped the tears away, and found a way to move forward. I took 2 jobs, anything that could pay the bills, anything that could keep me going. I remember working the late shift at the diner, my feet aching, my back stiff from standing for hours. I didn't care. I was used to pain, and this was temporary. I'd been living in a rut for too long, and now I had a plan. One night, after a shift, I ran into Sarah, an old acquaintance from high school. "Mia?" She blinked at me, clearly surprised to see me. "Wow, you look different." I forced a smile. "Yeah, well, life's been busy." She laughed lightly. "Busy, huh? I heard you and Jason broke up. What happened there?" I shrugged, but inside, I was already seething. "Life," I said, keeping it vague. I didn't want to get into it with her. She nodded, but her eyes were filled with pity. "Well, you've always been smart. I'm sure you'll bounce back." I nodded, not bothering to respond. Bouncing back wasn't the goal. I wasn't trying to get back to who I was. I was building something new, something better. A few months later, I had saved up enough to move out of my tiny apartment and rent a small studio in a better neighborhood. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I finally had something that was mine. I threw myself into work. Day after day, night after night, I worked, saved, and invested. I poured every ounce of energy I had into my dream, building a small online business. At first, it felt impossible, but every time I thought about giving up, I remembered Jason's words, his indifference, and the way he treated me like I was just another girl he could toss aside. I wasn't going to let him be right. One evening, after a long day of answering emails and fulfilling orders, I got a notification on my phone. Payment received. $500. I stared at the screen for a moment, not quite believing it. That was more than I'd made in the past month. Suddenly, the weight of everything I'd been through didn't feel so heavy. I could see a future now, a future where I wasn't stuck, a future where I was the one in control. I smiled to myself and leaned back in my chair, letting the reality of my hard work sink in. I didn't need anyone else to define me anymore. I was doing this on my own. The next day, I made a decision. I'd keep going, No more looking back. I wasn't the same girl I was when Jason left me behind. I was stronger, smarter, and I was building a life that I could be proud of. I never expected to see Jason again. It had been months, and I had finally convinced myself he was just a distant memory, one I could leave behind. But life has a funny way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. I was standing in line at the coffee shop, minding my own business, when I heard it. Mia? My heart skipped a beat. I froze. That voice. I turned slowly, almost too slowly, to meet his eyes. There he was, standing a few feet away, looking exactly the same as he had when he left. His dark hair was slightly longer now, but his smile, it was the same, that familiar crooked grin that used to make me feel like the world was at my feet. But this time, it didn't feel the same. His eyes widened, almost like he didn't recognize me at first. And when they did settle on me, I noticed it, a flash of disbelief. Mia? His voice wavered, unsure. Is that really you? I didn't answer right away. I just studied him, taking in the man who had once been everything to me. The man who left without a second thought. It's me, Jason, I finally said, my voice steady. You're not dreaming. His mouth opened and closed a few times, like he was searching for something to say, but couldn't find the words. The silence between us felt heavier than anything I had ever experienced. He shifted on his feet. Wow, I didn't expect this. His eyes were scanning me, but there was something different in the way he looked at me now. Something almost vulnerable? Expect what? I tilted my head, pretending I didn't notice how the corner of his mouth twitched in guilt. He ran a hand through his hair, looking away for a moment. I don't know. I guess I just didn't think you'd look like this. I couldn't help it. A small smile tugged at my lips. It wasn't because I was happy to see him, it was because I had become something he would never have imagined. Something he couldn't control. Something he couldn't have. Yeah, well, life happens, doesn't it? I said, my voice flat, though I couldn't deny the rush of satisfaction I felt watching him squirm. Jason cleared his throat. I didn't expect to run into you today, honestly. It's been a while. You left, I said, cutting him off before he could finish. You made your choice. I moved on. He flinched slightly, and I noticed how his gaze flickered toward the ground. I know, I messed up. There it was, the admission I'd waited to hear for so long. But it wasn't enough. It wasn't nearly enough for everything he'd put me through. I leaned against the counter, taking a sip of my coffee, deliberately slow. Yeah, you did, but it's fine. I'm good now. Jason looked at me, and I saw the regret in his eyes. His voice dropped an octave. Mia, I've thought about you a lot. I held up a hand, cutting him off. I'm not interested in your regrets, Jason. You don't get to come back and expect me to soothe your conscience. His face reddened slightly, his jaw tightening. I could see him trying to collect himself, trying to regain the control he once had over me. I didn't realize how good I had it. You were always there, always supporting me, and I didn't see that. I didn't see you. I stood up straighter, facing him head on. And now you do? Now that I'm someone you can't have? I let the words sink in. It felt good, watching him realize the shift. Jason shifted on his feet again, the guilt written all over his face. I don't know what I was thinking, Mia. I was stupid. I gave him a tight smile. You were, but it's too late for apologies. I'm not that girl anymore. I'm someone else now, someone better. He opened his mouth to speak, but nothing came out. He was lost for words, and for the first time, I felt nothing but satisfaction. Well, I said, pushing past him to leave. It was nice seeing you, Jason, but I have places to be, and with that, I walked out of the coffee shop, leaving him standing there, still processing the woman I had become, the woman he would never have again. It all happened so fast. One day, I was barely scraping by, working 2 jobs, and the next, I was signing contracts worth more than I'd ever imagined. I couldn't believe it when the email hit my inbox. The partnership I'd been pushing for was finally mine. The deal had gone through, and suddenly, I was no longer just surviving. I was thriving. I remember staring at the email, blinking, trying to make sure it wasn't some sort of mistake. I read it 3 times before the reality hit me. I had made it. I was in the middle of my morning routine when I saw the bank notification. My hands shook as I opened the app. The number staring back at me was more than I'd ever seen in my account. How did this happen? I wondered, but deep down, I knew. All the hours, the sweat, the late nights, it was finally paying off. I picked up my phone and called Sarah, the first person who had ever believed in me. Mia, what's going on? She answered on the third ring, clearly surprised to hear from me. I did it, I said, unable to hold back my excitement. The deal went through. The brand's taking off. I have money in my account, Sarah. Real money? She laughed, a sound that made me feel even lighter. I knew you could do it. I told you. It was just a matter of time. I smiled, though a part of me wanted to scream. Everything was finally happening. I don't know how to process this. You've earned it, Mia. I've seen how hard you've worked. Now enjoy it, she said. I ended the call, still in disbelief. I spent the next few hours finalizing the deal, and by the afternoon, I was signing papers to secure a house. Not just any house, but the mansion I'd always dreamed of. I couldn't help but think of Jason. Part of me wanted him to know, to see what he had missed out on. When we were together, he always thought I would never make it. He thought I would always be stuck. Maybe it was petty, but the thought of him seeing this new version of me, thriving and unstoppable, gave me a sense of power. I didn't need him, but I couldn't help but want him to see me now. The business event was coming up, and I made a decision. I would invite him. I wasn't going to beg for his attention, but I was going to make sure he saw the life I had created, the one he had walked away from. I didn't even tell him it was me organizing the event. He had no idea what he was walking into. The night of the event arrived. The venue was packed with people, clients, influencers, and other business owners, all of whom I had either partnered with or hoped to partner with in the future. The energy in the room was electric. The buzz of conversation surrounding me felt surreal. And then I saw him, Jason. He was standing by the bar, scanning the crowd like he wasn't sure if he belonged. His eyes caught mine, and for a brief second, there was a flicker of recognition, then shock. He couldn't hide it. I didn't look away. I held his gaze, a slow smile curling at the corner of my lips. He approached hesitant, but there was no mistaking the shift in him. The arrogance had faded. Mia, he said, his voice low, almost unsure. I didn't know you were behind all this. Surprise, I replied, my tone smooth. I told you I'd be fine without you, didn't I? Jason looked around the room, almost like he was taking in the new version of me. I didn't think you'd make it this far. I raised an eyebrow, enjoying the discomfort in his voice. You didn't think a lot of things, Jason. He shifted, looking down at the drink in his hand, then back at me. I was wrong, Mia. I cut him off. You don't need to apologize. You don't even deserve to. Just know that this is my world now. You're no longer a part of it. The weight of my words hung in the air between us, and I could see him struggling with it. Jason was realizing finally what he had underestimated. Me. I turned away, the feeling of triumph bubbling inside me. I didn't need his approval. I didn't need anything from him anymore. I had everything I needed, and I was only just getting started. I wasn't expecting him. When the doorbell rang, I thought it was someone from the company, maybe a client or a business partner. But when I opened the door and saw Jason standing there, I felt the air in my chest freeze. He looked different. His usual confidence was gone, replaced by a thin veil of desperation. The clean-cut appearance was still there, but those eyes told the real story. He was a man on the edge, clinging to something that had long slipped from his grasp. Mia. His voice cracked as he spoke my name. I didn't step back. I didn't move at all. I just stood there waiting. What are you doing here? I asked, my tone steady, almost cold. I had to see you. I know you probably hate me, but he took a step forward, eyes pleading. I made a mistake. I was wrong, Mia. Please, I need you to forgive me. His words hung in the air, but I wasn't ready to let him in. Not anymore. I crossed my arms and leaned against the doorframe, not allowing him to step past me. You don't get to ask for forgiveness. Not after what you did. Not after how easily you walked away from me. Jason lowered his gaze, clearly struggling to hold himself together. I didn't mean for it to happen like this. I thought I was making the right choice. But now I see, you see? I repeated, incredulous. Now you see? His eyes met mine, and I saw something there that made my stomach turn guilt. Real guilt. But it wasn't enough. It would never be enough. I know I hurt you. I see that now. And I hate myself for it. He faltered, swallowing hard. I've thought about you every single day since. I don't know how to fix this, but I want to. I want a chance to make it right, Mia. I shook my head slowly, the weight of his words not even scratching the surface of what I felt. You had your chance, Jason. You had your chance, and you threw it away. I don't need closure from you. I've moved on. The desperation in his eyes deepened, and he reached out a hand, as though trying to touch me, but I stepped back, keeping my distance. I can't just forget what I did, he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. I know you're better off without me, but I can't help wanting to fix things. I tilted my head, studying him with a calmness that almost surprised me. You can't fix this. You never will. You think you can just come back and erase everything? The years of doubting me, treating me like I wasn't enough, like I was a problem to fix? Jason opened his mouth to speak, but I cut him off, my voice firm. No, don't even try to make excuses. You don't get to walk into my life and expect me to let you back in. He looked at me, almost lost. Mia, I know I held up a hand to stop him. I don't need you. I don't need your apologies. And I don't need your pity. I'm stronger now, and I'm better off without you. I don't need anyone to complete me anymore. Especially not you. For a moment, there was only silence. His face was a mask of regret, and I could feel him wanting to reach for something that no longer existed. I didn't even recognize the man in front of me. The man I once loved was long gone, and the one standing here was nothing but a shadow of his former self. Jason let out a defeated sigh, his shoulders slumping. I understand. I guess I should go. I nodded once, stepping back from the door, allowing him no further entry into my life. You should. Goodbye, Jason. And with that I closed the door. I didn't watch him leave. I didn't need to. I had already let go. I didn't need Jason. I didn't need anyone. And yet, there he was again lingering on the edges of my life, as if nothing had changed. The first time he showed up at my office, I thought I might have been imagining it. He stood there, leaning against the doorframe, waiting for me to notice him. I didn't. I kept typing, ignoring the way his presence seemed to shift the air around me. Mia, he finally spoke, voice soft but carrying the weight of an apology. I didn't look up. What do you want, Jason? I said, not bothering to hide the edge in my voice. He paused, running a hand through his hair. I've been thinking a lot about what I said, and what I did. I can't stop thinking about you. I want to make it right. I'm not the same person anymore. I could feel the sting of his words, but it was different now. I wasn't the same person either. I stopped typing, slowly lowering my hands from the keyboard. My gaze lifted, finally meeting his eyes, and for a brief moment, I let myself savor the shift. The shift in power. You're not the same person? Well, congratulations. I leaned back in my chair, letting the words settle. But guess what? Neither am I. Jason shifted uneasily. I know. I see that now. I know I was wrong. But I've changed, Mia. I want to be part of your life again. Please, just give me a chance. I stood up, pacing slowly as I spoke. Jason, you don't get it, do you? I'm not the girl who needed your approval. I don't need you. And I don't need your validation. You're nothing more than a footnote in my life now. His face faltered for just a second, and I saw the confusion, the helplessness in his eyes. But we were good together. Mia, we were supposed to be together forever. His voice cracked on the last part, and I almost felt bad. Almost. No, I said, cutting him off. You were good for a while, but that's not enough. You walked away. You gave up on me. I took a step closer, watching his expression shift to one of discomfort. You didn't think I'd make it without you, did you? Jason didn't answer right away. He opened his mouth, but the words were stuck. I knew what he wanted to say. He wanted to beg, to grovel, to find a way back into my world. But it wasn't my world anymore. I crossed my arms, the corner of my mouth lifting into a smile that wasn't at all kind. I'm happy now, Jason. I've built something that doesn't need you in it. So stop coming around. This is your last warning. He stepped closer, desperation now evident in his posture. Mia, please. I can't just walk away knowing I ruined everything. I ruined us. I've been thinking. Stop. I raised my hand, silencing him. I don't want to hear it. You had your chance, Jason, and you threw it away. I took a deep breath, calming myself. You don't belong here anymore. You don't belong in my life. I turned my back on him, moving toward the window of my office, looking out over the city. The view was mine now. The future was mine. Jason's voice, quieter now, reached me from behind. I still love you, Mia. I almost laughed. You don't even know what love is. I felt the weight of his words, but they didn't reach me. Not anymore. I wasn't that girl anymore. I wasn't the one begging for his love, his attention. I had everything I needed, and it felt damn good. I'm done here, I said without turning around. Goodbye, Jason. And just like that, I closed the door on him for good. Jason just wouldn't leave. He was always there texting, calling, showing up at the most inconvenient times. At first, I felt a rush of power when he came around. I could see the regret in his eyes, the way he desperately tried to claw his way back into my life. But now, it was just getting annoying. One night, as I sat on the couch, scrolling through emails, my phone buzzed again. Jason, can we talk? I stared at the message, the same mix of anger and frustration bubbling up in me. Why was he still trying? Didn't he get it? I put my phone down. I wasn't going to reply. I wasn't going to be pulled back into that cycle of waiting, of wondering. I'd been there before. The next day, I saw his name on my caller ID. The usual knot tightened in my chest, but I pushed it aside. I wasn't that person anymore. I let it ring. An hour later, another text came through. Jason, please Mia, I need you to understand. I've changed. I miss you. I read it, but this time, it didn't hit me like it used to. It didn't make my heart race or my stomach twist. It was just a message, empty words from a person I used to know. I typed my reply slowly, making sure each word reflected how far I'd come. I've moved on, Jason. I'm not that girl anymore. Please stop trying to reach me. I hit send and leaned back against the chair, a sense of calm washing over me. It was done. That night, I went to bed early, feeling lighter than I had in months. For the first time, I felt truly free. Free from the past. Free from him. I wasn't going to waste any more time on someone who had abandoned me when I needed them most. The next morning, I got up, grabbed a cup of coffee, and went to work. It felt like nothing could hold me back anymore. The world was mine to shape, and for the first time in a long while, I wasn't afraid of what the future might bring. Later that afternoon, I ran into Sarah at a cafe, and she could immediately tell something was different. You look different. What happened? She asked, eyes wide with curiosity. I smiled, feeling the weight of everything that had shifted. I finally let go, Sarah. I stopped looking back. She grinned, leaning forward. That sounds like a big step. I'm proud of you. I shook my head. It wasn't just a step. It was a leap. I'm not letting anything, especially not a man, hold me back anymore. Her smile softened. I'm glad. You deserve to move on, Mia. You've been through too much to keep holding on to someone who doesn't see your worth. I nodded, the words sinking in deeper. She was right. Jason didn't see me. He never had. But I saw myself now. And that was all that mattered. When I got home that night, I opened the door to my new apartment, and for the first time, I felt completely at peace. There was no one waiting for me. There were no unanswered texts, no missed calls. It was just me. And that was enough. I walked into my living room and stood by the window, looking out at the city lights below. This was my future. No more distractions, no more past, and no more Jason. I never expected to feel this way. It was almost strange how everything seemed to come full circle. When I first heard about Jason's financial troubles, I couldn't help but laugh. At first, I thought it was just gossip, something people said to fill the silence. But when I saw the news reports, the company he'd built crumbling under a mountain of debt, the joke wasn't funny anymore. It was irony in its purest form, and it felt good. I was having lunch with Sarah when the news hit. The look on her face told me everything before she even said a word. Have you heard about Jason? She asked, eyes wide. I looked up, feigning ignorance, though part of me already knew. What about him? She leaned in closer, lowering her voice. His company's gone under, bankrupt. Word is, he was too careless, too arrogant to see the problems piling up. I took a slow sip of my iced tea, letting the news settle in. I see. I know it's not your style, Mia, but do you feel bad for him? She asked, clearly concerned. I shook my head. No, I don't. He made his bed. Let him lie in it. And just like that, the knot in my chest loosened. It wasn't anger anymore. It wasn't even the bitter resentment I'd once felt. I felt nothing, just closure. A few days later, I got a text from an old acquaintance who still kept in touch with Jason. Jason's reaching out to everyone he knows, asking for loans. People are starting to turn him down. I couldn't help the smirk that crossed my face. He was begging now, begging for the help he never thought he'd need. I remembered how he used to look at me, that smug expression on his face when I told him I was struggling. How he dismissed my dreams as nothing more than fantasies, while he built his empire on the backs of others. It was all coming undone, and I wasn't sorry. That night, I ran into him at an event unplanned, of course. He was standing in the corner, talking to a few people, but the moment he saw me, I noticed the shift. His eyes were tired, the usual confident gleam replaced with exhaustion and something else. Regret. Mia, he said, walking toward me with slow, almost defeated steps. I didn't move. I just stood there, watching him approach, feeling that old rush of power I hadn't realized I'd missed. You look good, he said, trying to muster a smile that fell flat. I didn't smile back. Thanks. You look. I paused, savoring the moment. Well, you don't look like someone who has it all together anymore. His face fell. I didn't ask for this. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. I'm sure it wasn't, I replied. But it's funny how things turn out, isn't it? All those times you walked away from me, like I was never going to amount to anything. Looks like you were wrong. He looked away, unable to meet my gaze. Mia, I made mistakes. I've lost everything. And now you're asking for help? From me? From anyone? My voice was calm, almost a calm. I don't know what else to do, he whispered, his pride finally slipping. Exactly, I said softly, the satisfaction settling into my bones. You don't know what to do, because you've never had to work for anything. You always thought you could coast on your charm, your connections. Well, karma's a real thing, Jason, and it's not always kind. He didn't reply. There was nothing more he could say. I turned to walk away, feeling lighter than I had in years. He was a distant memory now, one I no longer had to keep in my life. I'm sorry, Mia, he called after me. I paused but didn't turn around. I don't need your apologies, Jason. They won't fix anything. And just like that, I walked away, feeling the weight of everything that had changed. He was the one who was broken. Now, he was the one who needed something I could never give him. Karma had unfolded in the most beautiful way, and for the first time, I felt like everything was as it should be. The message came in late that night. I was already in bed, ready to turn off the world and just breathe. But then, my phone buzzed, cutting through the silence. I didn't even have to look at the screen. I already knew who it was. Jason, can we talk? I stared at the words for a moment. It wasn't the first time he'd reached out, but this felt different. There was no pretentious message, no I miss you or let's fix things, just that simple request. Can we talk? I felt a tightness in my chest that had nothing to do with emotion and everything to do with the decision I'd made long ago. A decision I didn't regret. I had already given this man enough of my time, enough of my life. I didn't owe him anything. I set the phone down and walked away from it. The next morning, I found myself sitting at my desk, staring at the blinking cursor. I had a million things to do, but all I could think about was what his message meant. Why now? What could he possibly want that hadn't already been said? The phone buzzed again. Jason, please? I'm sorry for everything. I never should have walked away. I can't live with myself knowing how much I hurt you. I read the words, each one more pathetic than the last. He sounded broken, but I wasn't, not anymore. I took a deep breath and typed my response, each word falling into place like the final brick in the wall I had built between us. I've moved on, Jason. I'm not the same person I was, and I don't need you anymore. I've found happiness on my own without you. I'm not angry. I'm just done. I hit send before I could second guess myself. The silence that followed felt heavy, almost suffocating. My phone stayed still, quiet. Then finally, a reply came. It wasn't immediate, but when it did, I could feel the weight of it. Jason, I understand. I'm so sorry. Goodbye. I read those last words, but they didn't sting like they once would have. They were just words, nothing more. I leaned back in my chair, staring out the window at the city below. The truth was, I didn't need him to apologize. I didn't need closure, or him to acknowledge all the hurt he had caused. I had already healed. I had already let go. Jason wasn't part of my world anymore. He had never truly been. And that realization didn't hurt, it was freeing. It felt like something had shifted, as if the last weight I'd been carrying had finally been lifted. The past was exactly that, the past. I picked up my phone again, and this time, I smiled. I had everything I needed. My career was flourishing. I had built a life from nothing, and every step I'd taken had been for me, not for anyone else. My phone buzzed again, but I didn't even check it. I didn't need to. I was finally free from the hold he had on me. I closed that chapter for good. And as I did, I felt the excitement for what was ahead surge through me. I had finally become the woman I was meant to be. I was ready for everything the future held, with or without him. I stood on the balcony of my mansion, looking out over the sprawling city below. The lights flickered like tiny stars, illuminating the night, and for the first time in a long while, I felt completely at peace. The air was cool, crisp against my skin, and I breathed it in slowly, letting the stillness wash over me. I had come so far. I thought back to everything I'd been through, the pain, the betrayal, the loneliness. There were days when it felt like I was drowning in it all, when I wondered if I would ever make it out. But I had survived. And not just survived, I had built something incredible. I never needed Jason's approval, never needed his validation. All those years of feeling like I wasn't enough, like I was just a stepping stone for him to climb higher, they seemed so distant now. I had created this life, my life on my own. It wasn't just about the mansion, the career, or the money. It was about me, the woman I had become. And I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was thriving. I pulled my coat tighter around me, the wind tugging at the fabric. But it didn't matter. The cold couldn't touch me. Nothing could. I had spent so much time thinking that I needed closure, that I needed Jason to see what he'd lost. But now, standing here in the stillness, I realized how wrong I had been. I didn't need anything from him. No apology. No apology could erase the years he'd taken from me. But I didn't feel angry anymore. I used to. I used to think that I needed to make him regret walking away. I wanted him to feel the weight of his choices, to understand the damage he'd caused. But I didn't need that now. I didn't need to prove anything to him. The past was the past. It was behind me. I smiled to myself, the realization settling in deeper than I expected. I had let go. I had finally let go of everything that weighed me down. The bitterness, the hurt, the need for revenge, it had all faded. The city below me, the future ahead, it all felt like a blank canvas. I could do anything. And I would. I pulled my phone from my pocket, just to check if there were any new messages, but I stopped myself. I didn't need to see anything. I didn't need Jason's name, his voice, or anyone from my past to make me feel complete. I had everything I needed. I sent one final message to Sarah: I'm exactly where I need to be. Everything is right where it's supposed to be. It was simple, but it said everything. I didn't need to hear anything from anyone. I didn't need closure or validation. What I had now, what I had built, what I had created was mine. The life I had dreamed of was right in front of me. And the future? It was full of endless possibilities. I didn't need anyone else to complete me. I was complete on my own. And for the first time, I realized that was enough. I sat at the cafe, watching the people around me, lost in their own worlds. The hustle of life was everywhere, but for the first time in so long I felt still, at peace. I had been through so much, so many highs and lows. There were days I thought I'd never make it out, days when I let the pain and the anger take over. But now I knew the truth. None of it was for nothing. I looked out the window, watching the city move. I wasn't the same girl I had been when Jason left. I wasn't the girl who begged for his love, who sacrificed everything for someone who never valued me. That version of me was long gone. I had grown. I had learned. I took a sip of my coffee, thinking about everything I had achieved. The mansion, the business, the life I'd built for myself. It wasn't just about the success. It was about the strength I had found within myself. I didn't need anyone's validation anymore. I had spent so much time thinking that my life was defined by what Jason thought, by what everyone else thought. But now, my life was mine. My story wasn't about the man who left, who betrayed me. It was about me, and everything I had done for myself. Are you okay? Sarah's voice broke through my thoughts, and I turned to see her sitting across from me, concern in her eyes. I smiled. Yeah, I'm more than okay actually. She raised an eyebrow, clearly intrigued. You're really doing this, huh? Living your best life? I nodded, the smile widening on my face. I am. I didn't know it at first. But all that pain? It was the fuel I needed to get here. I've survived. I've thrived. And I'm just getting started. Sarah chuckled, shaking her head. You've definitely come a long way. You're stronger than I ever imagined. I leaned back in my chair, letting her words sink in. Stronger, smarter, more confident than I ever thought I'd be. I know who I am now, and that's everything. For the first time, I felt no trace of regret, no trace of anger, just pride. The past was exactly that, the past. I had walked away from it. I had walked away from Jason. I had walked away from everything that had once held me back. I wasn't looking back anymore. I was walking forward. The best was yet to come.